because I want to understand what kind of challenges you all are facing while creating your stories. Uh, where are you getting stuck? Um, can I help? What kind of discussions you would like to have? Would you like your fellow team members to review that? So I will be requesting you to drop a message to the phone number that will be there at the end. And from there, we can pick up and create a group. And don't worry, this message will be repeated at the end. So today we plan to be pirates. We will study, borrow, steal the ideas, what has been done by a lot of people before us, the content or the stories that we consume today. And the purpose is to learn from them. How can we modify? How can we create, generate new ideas from the existing? Uh, Today's agenda, it is story format. We'll go deeper into the story genres. What is the bare minimum requirement for your story? And I'll touch upon the frameworks also. Yesterday, I got some feedback that most of the discussions were too basic. And second thing is because for next 5 days you'll be on your own. We will again connect on Saturday. I want to give you some ideas, some worksheets so that whatever content, whatever stories you are either reading or plan to read or watch in next 5 days, you take some notes and learn from them, not just consume as an entertainment. Recap of previous lecture. In case you have any questions, please type on the chat box and I'll be happy to address that. Excuse me. We define story definitions from Google that it can be a make believe, it can be a journey, it can be the truth or a lie or a made up story. Importance of stories, why we humans need stories, why we are accustomed to it. Our brain is designed to respond to these stories. What are the different components of story? The characters, what defines the characters, same way the objects, the time setting, and also what kind of research you need to do to ensure that your story is actually a quality story. How to identify story trends? This is more to do with to know your audience, how your audience consumes these kind of services or stories or content, and can you or do you need to either transform your existing story so that it's easily consumable by the audience? And then who and what are you competing against? It's important at the end of the day, if I want to buy your story, or if I want to read your story, whatever is the investment, whether financial or intellectual or my time, uh, what are you competing against? What is it that is taking up that space in your reader's mind or the bookshelf or the daily routine? So let's be aware of that. And the most important part, your story is important. I just want you to package it better. I just want you to ensure you get more audience and whatever is the purpose of your story. You want to bring in a change, you want to create some entertainment value, excuse me, you want to be recognized. It's there, it's out there for your audience. Any question from yesterday's recap? Anything you'd like me to repeat? I can open the presentation and I can go through that. I'll just take a sip of water. Until then, you could just think if you need any. Okay. We will start today's lecture. Okay, no questions. Sapna, do you have any questions on any other forum? I don't see any on the Zoom chat.
No, chat में नहीं है sir. YouTube पे भी नहीं है अभी तो.
Okay, let's. So, what are the story genres? Story genres are a way of telling or explaining what type of story it is. So, in a very basic definition, I'll say it's a type of the story. what kind of story you are planning to write. Now, I mentioned it yesterday, and we'll discuss it today later in the lecture that we no longer have one single genre. We'll discuss this later in the storyline. Each story, they, each story will have different characters, will have different events, which borrows or combines different aspects. So I'll just go through some of these genres and give you some examples. Now, it's possible that literature or the academicians have a very defined story genres. The reason I have kept this long list is so that you don't stop yourself from experimenting with different aspects from different genres. And the one thing you have to be careful about is the more complex you make the story, it may. Yeah, Modish, I will cover that over here. This is where I had put business person and professional. So I'll just uh, touch upon it, and maybe in some of the sessions I will put some time to that. But overall, that will be just an I'll say a small discussion, because our purpose here is more to do with uh, the art part of the story writing, not the business part. But definitely, I've made note of it. I will ensure that I share some material on that. Thank you. Thank you for your question, Mutish. Yep. So we start with simple drama. It can be political, social, family, and we know that most of our family setup is a function of or is dependent on our social setup, our geographical locations. So that's the one aspect. Political aspect is typically a strong-willed politician who brings in a change, or uh, some other kind of real life story that can be uh, twisted or either emphasized or mostly glorified story of any character. Adventure genre is one of the most overused and one of those genres that appeal the most to our own psychology. I will be covering a little bit on it at the end of the lecture. Which is actually from the next week's discussion. So adventure is where uh, some things are like pirates, uh, getting the clues, fighting their enemies, going for a treasure hunt. So you may be a pirate, or you might be fighting against the pirates. Some of the early literature on that was related to pirates, and then you have travels to new lands, unknown people. Thanks, Kabir. Thanks for your comment. Then we have detective fiction. Detective fiction is less to do with physical violence, more to do with your intellectual capabilities, the character, as well as the opposing character, both protagonist and antagonist. They are in a war of brains, but there is they may or may not physically go against each other, but they do play a long game. They try to either sabotage each other or harm each other in different ways. Uh, Again, more later in the lecture, heist, escape, or rescue. These are more, I'll say, timeline based. In heist, escape, or rescue, time is a very premium thing that either you have to uh, ensure you steal the money in the heist part, and the other part which is common in these three is you have to make up a team. Your team is from different characters. The people you rely the most may or may not be able to join your team. Then you introduce a character which creates distrust within the team, and how the things and things will always go off the plan. Your original plan will be well thought, but there will be challenges in the plan. So uh, The reason I grouped these three is because these ideas they cut across all three and others also. And it's this is not an exhaustive list. Science fiction, you either extend or downplay a certain recent innovation, like nowadays AI, artificial intelligence, computer-based general intelligence, drones, metaverse, 3D reality. These are the things which are not just currently, but also historically, we have a lot of literature on that. So science fiction is basically extension of some of the scientific principles. Its impact on the society. However, uh, it will create enormous amount of wealth for a certain segment and misery for the others. And that is how it can be actually linked to dystopians or utopian lifestyle also. So even science fiction can have different genres, but then again, there will be an adventure, there will be heist, escape, or rescue. A person would go against the system or try to get into the system and try to break the system from inside. So, but overall, you need to have a scientific explanation for this. There should be some principles that you follow. If you're traveling to space, you need to ensure either you have unlimited supply of fuel based on the solar cells, or I'm just taking one example that you need to justify that if you're going for a long voyage, why is it that you don't need fuel? How do you ensure you have enough food supply, your fuel, food, your oxygen? So you have to justify those things in science. Disaster, apocalypse, and recently zombie genre is pretty uh, widely used. So now here you have to have either a natural disaster, ecological disaster, volcanoes, earthquakes, sandstorms, something similar that pushes the characters into a difficult situation. You are having, or the characters have limited resources. How you survive. Now, I didn't put it there, but when we'll go into the genres, then we'll go or deep dive into the subplots. You also need to find out what is the goal, what is the outcome. I'll cover that later, but I'll just touch upon it now. What is the goal of your story? Do you want to ensure that you survive for 24 hours and the help is on the way, or do you want to, or when I say you, your characters, do you want your characters to take up that challenge and go against that particular system or antagonist and win at the end? You have to define in the beginning when you start the story that what is your aim. Okay, superhuman genre at least for last 15 years. Then Batman and Spider-Man have been there in animation. In the media culture, Batman was consistent, Superman was consistent, but recently Marvel has taken over. Personally, after Avengers, I haven't watched any movies. I feel they are just doing random stuff, but that's just me. Uh, so, what kind of plots are there for superhumans? And the reason I am giving some example of the movies is that movies are easily accessible. We have a lot of commonalities while discussing the movies. For series, I would like to understand what kind of series or books you are watching, and we can have discussions on those. So I will work with Anup and Sapna to ensure that I get your inputs, what kind of access you are having to the OTT platforms, to the movies or books, so that when we deep dive specifically into the workshops for detective fiction, adventure fiction, I can get the examples that are relevant to the material that you have. So fantasy magic, although Game of Thrones and Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, these are the current favorites. But traditionally speaking, if you read a lot of uh, old fiction, Lord of the Rings, again, Tolkien's books are there, but a lot of plots for Harry Potter, they were picked up from older books. Ursula Guin's Earthsea trilogy. Then we have Wheel of Time now on the Amazon. Terry Pritchard is pretty much the god of fantasy magic in this genre. So you have to have really good examples if you want to get into the fantasy magic genre, because Harry Potter has not only uh, introduced this, but it has made it difficult to differentiate as an author. Uh, as an author, you are competing because that's the standard now. Historic fiction, period drama, it's very common on TV. Even a lot of recent Indian movies are having success in this. Period drama, Bahubali or RRR. I haven't watched any of these, but you pick up some historical incidents, you give the backstory, you give the individual level struggle and how you build on that. More of period drama also. Again, research is very important here. You cannot have, I mean, I remember there were some video games, they will have cheat code that in the Roman warfare, you can get a tank in the video game. So you have to ensure that you show the progress or the innovation which is related to the timeline. War or military or spy fiction. Jean Le Carre, The Night Manager has been publicized recently. It's already on Amazon Prime. Le Carre is the one of the best spy fiction writers. You have Born Identity. That genre is there. Robert Ludlum's books, the original writer for Born Identity. Born, I think it was trilogy in original. Then psychological thrillers are something I'll say relatively new to Indian market, but they're more like split personalities, serial killers, fanatics that are having something in their mind where they go completely against the norm, the social norms, and they end up harming other members of the society. And they're proud of that. They like what they're doing. There's no guilt or shame in what they're doing. So the characters are again pretty difficult to write. Sports, comeback, redemption. Sports stories are either stories of David versus Goliath, or I'll have some examples later on again. So whether you are presenting an individual sports person and his or her journey towards the glory, or you are presenting a team conflict like in Chuck Day. So you can have similar. I mean, if you see Chuck Day is also about redemption of the coach. It's all also about the girls coming from different parts of Indian state, having different backgrounds, and how they gel together. In the beginning, there is a lot of conflict. How that conflict is managed, they have to achieve a common goal. Then space travel, aliens. Again, it can be a genre under science fiction, but specifically writing for that, you might want to understand what can see you. If you want to create a conflict or difficult situation, you need to understand what can go wrong in space travel. So if we look at the movie Gravity, where a person is repairing, or a team is actually repairing something in the space station, and they get into a difficult situation. Now, that is something which is believable. Is it science fiction, or is it actually something which is out in space? I would say it's not work of fiction. That is, I mean, it's a lie, or maybe a lie, but it is a believable lie. If the space travel or the space race has heated up in the last 5 or 10 years, with a lot of private sector investing in that, it is possible that we need more repair people. We need to ensure that the space stations are well maintained, right? So uh, I personally found it believable. I'm sorry. Action, suspense, thriller. I mean, you have movies such as, like, they'll have just Senseless, violence or action, but they are on the TV. They're good to watch, but while writing, how far you can go. Same is the next one, the slasher, ghost, or horror. How do you create those pictures in, or I'll say the emotion, be it fear or horror in the minds of your readers? A comedy satire, uh, one of the most difficult things to write, I would say. Not only you need to understand the societal setup, you need to understand that you are not actually making fun of the underprivileged. You are not just taking aim at the people who cannot hit back. So uh, that's something which is, I mean, at least in Indian stand-up culture, that's pretty common. Uh, I don't follow it much, but whatever I did one point of time, uh, I couldn't relate. I was more like, hey, it's something different. So when you're writing about it, how do you uh, how do you create those situations? And it's pretty common in young adult fiction, in children books also. So you can get some good examples from there, like some situational comedy where you are misrepresented, your whatever you say is misrepresented, and later on it leads to a silly mistake. Autobiographies or biographies, for that matter, individual stories of mostly getting out of a difficult situation, sacrifice, bravery, courage, helping the society, innovation, such. Legal or police drama, I gave an example yesterday, like in an example of CID, all the citizens, they know the phone number of CID. So any random accident, I simply call CID. So you need to understand the legal aspects to make it believable. Uh, y- and the other important thing is you cannot simply pick up from foreign systems here. For example, I forgot the drama I was watching. I mean, I think in some of the European companies, the police may or may not be carrying a gun. You might have to get an approval or justify carrying the gun or unlocking the case from your vehicle. Whereas in United States-based movies, guns are pretty common. So, what kind of setup you are writing in? It's important. Same with the legal aspects. What is the legal rule? And another aspect is the federal state. Like in India, all the states must. Uh, we are union of states, but Supreme Court is the highest court. However, that may or may not be the case in other countries. The local courts or the how the individual states in United States, their local courts, how they are set up. So, and plus, I think even the legal powers, advertising. I mean, I recently came to know that the lawyers in India, they cannot advertise uh, openly, similar to uh, foreign lawyers. I mean, in foreign countries, even in the sports or even in other local TV channels, you will have a lot of legal advertisements. And Ken Follett is one of the best writers I read, or some of the TV series I have seen. But I really like his books. Dystopian is a genre where we see the societal issues being amplified and being ignored for a long time. I recently read Fahrenheit 451. Uh, Such a good book, a short book, not a big one, but similar genre, Hunger Games, where one part of society is just so happy and or they pretend to be happy, but internally it's hollow. And there is another segment of society which is toiling, working hard so that uh, the privileged section get their benefit. Now, in this one, Brave New World is another example. So dystopian or utopian, again, you need to borrow from science fiction. You need to have a political and a social again combination. Underworld, mob, drugs related stories, another genre which is pretty, which was increasing a lot. Nowadays we don't find much, so we have local stories coming up. Such, I mean, I think Gangs of Wasseypur was in 2011 or 2012. So since then, we have had pretty much consistent dose of such stories, at least in the Indian scenario. Rags to riches, similar to biographies or otherwise, also how a person comes through uh, in a difficult situation, and the situation can be social, financial, political, but you end up having a feel good story. Now to I hope is still there. I think yeah, Modish mentioned about business. So how can you use data like see for business person one part is having a story of a business how the business person goes to either he or she restrict the rules, encourage corruption, or the other part is always to showcase the person hardworking, thinking, not show the other factors, which is pretty much the theme in Indian cinema. Excuse me. Now, for video games, also you can write stories. They do follow a structure. You have some challenges. You have different levels. So story writing is also a very common thing for video games. How you design the character. Now, the reason I skipped the business persons for business is in the business setup, you need to connect to your audience and you only have very limited time. I mean, if your audience is the stakeholder or the decision maker who can make or break your deal. So the story structure, I personally suggest two parts. First is you show the problem, you tell them how you can approach the problem or how you have done it in the past, what were the challenges you faced, how you address those challenges, and why you are the best bet for this particular project. And the second option is you use peer or lead marketing. You showcase that how you are lagging behind, what's the story, how uh, what can be the losses, what are the opportunities you are missing if you don't partner with me. So you can actually follow some of the aspects of storytelling in the business setup. Just take a pause. Any question, anything right now? A slasher, I miss. Slasher is like violent, where you have a lot of blood getting out. A typical college break movies for US, Scream and Urban Legend, or I Know What You Did Last Summer are typical examples. Texas Chainsaw Massacre uh, are part of this genre. Indian movies tried to get that, but I don't think they made it that far. I don't know the reason. Uh, it's still an open area. Any questions? I'll just take a minute. Anything you think I missed or you'd like to add? You're happy to do so. I'll update the presentation before I send it across. Okay, let me go to the questions. Oh, I hope Modish, I know it's not exactly the details, but there are a lot of videos on storytelling based on data. I'll request you go through that. And if you have a specific problem which is not in conflict with what I work for, the companies I work for, I would be happy to have a discussion. Kabir, I actually didn't get. You're right. I mean, I can group all of them in a single genre or subgenre, but the reason I try to create uh, so many different genres is so that when you analyze a story, you understand it's not just one plot. There are many subplots within a plot. And how can we beg, borrow, and steal from different plots and then engage the audience? That was the reason. I think Kabir has already left. Okay. Anything else? No other questions? So I'll go to the next one. So story flow, based on the genre of your stories, the flow will change. How you introduce the characters, the challenges for the characters will change. So whatever, and then again, what's your purpose? Like we just discussed the business purpose. It's very difficult to get meetings with your required stakeholders in case of business, in case of learning. You want to engage. You want your audience to work on something for entertainment. It's just a value that first thing is your audience enjoys whatever they're consuming, your text or your video or your movie format, and they definitely encourage their own friends and peers to watch it. So you need to understand the components for what genre you're working on. What's your main plot? You need to understand the interactions. Interactions cannot be dry, in so dry that it actually looks like you just cut the vegetables and just pour them. There has to be a recipe. There has to be a flavor. There has to be cohesion. You cannot just throw in the different plots and say, you might have one or two wow moments, like a very good action movie. Okay, he jumped from a building and you have that, but if it doesn't fit, it's not there. Throughout the whole time your audience is reading or consuming your story, you must keep them engaged. So that's why you have main plot, you'll have subplots, and transformation is important. Transformation should be visible. Your character may or may not realize what transformation he or she is undergoing, but your reader must. Your reader must emotionally engage with your character. Okay, I know what character is going through. Okay, how do you want to? What do you want to achieve? As I mentioned, audience interest. What is the impact of the transformation you wish to bring? Uh, if it's an emotional transformation, if a person who's very rude, who doesn't care much about the fellow citizens or fellow residents, how that person ends up having a really, uh, I'll say, an altruistic action of maybe a financial or a social degree of sacrifice. And as good as it gets by Jack Nicholson is one such example. He's an author, he's very famous. He actually doesn't like social setting. He mocks women openly, and but at the end, I mean, there's some of the dialogues in that movie which are so ridiculous as of now, but the transformation of that character is really great. Uh, Again, like I mentioned yesterday, we know it's a fiction. Fiction is a lie, but how far you can stretch that lie and how you can make it believable. Remember that. We will be looking at some do's and don'ts also. I mean, we cannot have the accidents that actually help your characters. Now, which genres would you like me to cover? I had mentioned it yesterday. As we move forward in the workshop, we will be having very specific deep dives into some of the genres. So I plan detective thriller, adventure, sports, superhumans, mythology, fantasy. Anything you'd like me to change, anything, and it's not going to be a single one. I mean, even in case of superhero or superhuman movies, there is some detection, there is some fantasy, uh, superpowers, just similar to mythology. So there will be a mix always. There is nothing having a pure detective or a pure superhuman kind of a thing. If you would like to change any of the things, for example, you are working on a certain story and you would like those aspects to be discussed, please drop a message and I'll ensure that that part is included. And then if you would like to drop any of these, even that is applicable. The reason I have kept these is this is applicable pretty much across the globe. I don't have to tell you. I wanted to include legal and police dramas, but the police procedures and legal procedures, they differ from state to state. Even in India, they differ across countries. You need to have a really strong local flavor. A police or a cop story in Mumbai may or may not be applicable to a cop in Chennai, but we have seen success of single movies, the original ones from Tamil cinema, then they were, uh, I'll say, adapted or copied or whatever is the woke term for that, by uh, Bollywood and big success. So I've tried to keep it as generic as possible, but still, you would need any change. You would like to discuss anything other than that. So we will be having discussions for each of the genres of three plot structure. But the reason I share this with you is, uh, as part of the assignments, you will be reviewing some of the stories or movies or series. So three plot structure is one of the basic structures of any story. There's beginning, middle, and the end. Most of us have ideas at the beginning and at the end, but this is where we lose the audience in the middle. Can we write enough? Can we engage the audience enough so that they are with us in this journey throughout time? So, beginning starts mostly with status quo. Uh, Everything or everyone is either happy with whatever is going on or don't want to change anything or feels it's too risky or is benefiting from the system and they just don't care what goes on. So the little change, which is normally ignored, which is normally unheard of or not acknowledged, happens. That is typically where the first part of the three plot structure ends. From there, we pass it on to the middle part, which is where the protagonist or the hero or the main character understands what is possible, how to achieve that, what are the challenges. Uh, or in a very simple term, this is where the goal is set and it's understood that it's going to be difficult. And then at the end, we have the showdown with the cost. Cost means what is it that the hero is willing to give up. And we see in most of the movies the climax, either physically, emotionally, financially, we end up having a big risk or big reward kind of thing. So just I could not connect my tablet today, so I'm sorry you have to go through this. But the detective thriller, the beginning will be either a crime or a loss of something. Detective is called. You introduce the character. You introduce or you talk about what's going on. I'll say you'll have some interactions where you showcase either the detective or the person uh, who is the actual perpetrator of the crime, the criminal, or the other characters, how they interact or how they are introduced to each other. Then the second part will be the real investigation, the difficulty. You explain the plot. Now, again, based on the kind of sequence you're following, I had mentioned it yesterday also. The first option is you show the crime up front, and your readers know who committed the crime. But uh, it's a very old joke that in Hindi movies, everybody in the world knew that heroine's father is a drug dealer except the hero. So that's how it will be. Uh, uh, the 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 reader knows what went wrong, but the characters in your book, or sorry, the reader knows who's the criminal, how it happened, but throughout the book, you have to prove it, and then you realize how good or bad your situation is, how well thought the actual crime was, and then again you have a situation: are you putting your hero in danger? Like in case of Agatha Christie's Poirot, Poirot is never in any physical danger. Rarely it happens. And what is the importance of having good side characters? How many characters do you need? Sorry, gets fired upon or gets fired from the job, a personal risk in the bureaucratic environment, as well as a physical risk. So these are the challenges you are facing. And then at the end, you collect the clues, you combine it all together, you challenge the assumptions that were carefully put down by antagonists to confuse the people or to protect himself or herself. The detective wins, you transform, and what is the cost? So, the cost in recent detective fiction, we see the loved ones or the near ones of the detectives being put at risk, being kidnapped or otherwise. However, in a typical detective that books, that may or may not be. Similarly, I'm keeping the sports, superhumans, and magic together because the first, the beginning or the first plot is usually the discovery phase. So I'll give you two or three examples here. First example is Harry Potter. He doesn't know he's a magician. His parents were well established witches and wizards. I mean, from the it's not a family thing, but the craft. If Another sports movie that I liked is Iqbal. So Iqbal, he knows he wants to be a good bowler. He follows the bowlers and thinks India needs bowlers, but he doesn't know how good he is. Dangal, uh, we start with the first beginning part. Okay, he is like the character. Amit Khan's wife, they are sad that he wants the country to win. He could not do it, but what's the solution? And then they realize that okay, the daughter is really good at it, or she's strong, and this is an option. So he will start training his daughter. So that will be in a very simple part, the beginning. However, the difference is that in Harry Potter, every book you start with the problem, you end with, or all these three aspects are part of a single book. So, and when you keep all seven books together, you'll have a different storyline. In case of Iqbal or Dangal, you have one storyline, one single story that goes from it. And same is the case with I think Superman also. He doesn't know. I think Supergirl is a spin-off, but Supergirl is shown that she already knew about her superpower. Superman doesn't know. He discovers initially, then he ends up in working in the city. Now, the second part is objection, the challenges, the system, the unfair competition. So in this case, again, Iqbal and Dangal, they have a difference. For superheroes or for magic, there'll be different challenges. Either you are being uh, considered outcast, you are not good enough, or your competitor is having an unfair advantage. So that will be there. And then to get to the end, to get for that final showdown, just to get for the final showdown, just to get that final shot at the title or at the glory. You have to have sacrifice, courage. You have to surpass your own expectation. You have to push yourself. And the character has pushed herself beyond the limits. So all that gets to the showdown, and even at the showdown, have to ensure that there is a moment when you know that there is going to be a huge personal cost to achieve that. And it's common across sports, superhumans, and chicken. I'll pause. Any questions, anything that you'd like me to explain, or anything you feel was completely out of the way? I'll keep this slide on. If you have any questions. I just wanted to explain the three plot structure, how it differs for each genre. That doesn't mean you cannot create or combine the subplots. Okay, no question. Okay. Now, what is it that you require bare minimum for a story? The example I took yesterday, I go to a restaurant, I have no problem. Maybe I get some traffic, some red lights, I cross them and lights are green. I end up in a restaurant, I order food, my family buys it. We have some talk, we come back, everything is hunky dory. That's not a story, that's an event uh, which happening multiple times in multiple lives. The bare minimum for a story. You need a character, protagonist. Protagonist, I don't care if your protagonist is good or evil. I want your audience to connect to that protagonist. You may hate that character, you may despise that character, but your audience must root for your protagonist. Antagonist, opposite. A person or a character that is standing between the final goal, what protagonist wants to achieve, making the life of protagonist hell, a living hell, or having some kind of an advantage or control over the others, over the larger section. So it's up to you how you define antagonist, but has to be powerful. Actually, your antagonist defines your story. Even if you see in, I mean, we'll discuss this in superhuman genre, your superhero movie is actually as good as your antagonist. There's a reason Joker is such a beloved character of all the Batman series, of all the Batman movies, right? So it's not because he's the last character in the series or it has not been played earlier. I mean, Riddler is far more intelligent. Riddler has the brains. Riddler knows the technology. Two-Face is a politician, is a well-learned professional politician. I think Two-Face Harvey Dent, he has legal degree also, wants to change the city. So, but Joker is, I'll say, a beloved villain or antagonist. So why? That's the strength. That's why that movie is the best. So especially in superhero movies, the bad guy or the villain defines the quality of your story. When there is no Moriarty for uh, Poirot, right? So Poirot, otherwise, I mean, Agatha Christie didn't go for Moriarty for whatever reason, but there is not a long-standing rivalry that goes across the books or the stories for Poirot. But Moriarty is having such a devious mind. Moriarty outplays, outfoxes uh, Sherlock in so many ways. So Moriarty is the essence of Sherlock. There is no one else, or maybe Irene Adler only comes, I think, in one or two characters. In the adaptation by BBC, Irene has been glorified, and Sherlock is just going everywhere and doing everything. But Moriarty defines Sherlock. Joker glorifies the second Batman movie, right? So understand that. You cannot ignore your antagonist. What is the final goal? Now here, I could not find the source, and I've been trying to. The goal of antagonist is a very well laid out plan, in especially in superhero movies. In heist, the goal is very well laid out by your protagonist. So there are two different parts. Remember that. In heist movie, the protagonist plans well, but there will always be challenges because of the team members, because of the flaw in the plan. But he or she must stick to the goal and try to overcome these challenges. However, in case of detective fiction, in case of some of the thrillers, Antagonist or the villain has actually well-laid plan where the protagonist actually disturbs the plan in different aspects, and antagonist actually says, "Hey, don't worry, I will still get it." So Mission Impossible movies are such that uh, I shared some examples yesterday also. I think that there is a plan from the bad guy or the antagonist to achieve something, and there are different aspects to the whole story, three or four subplots. Uh, the main character, the hero, the protagonist, might be able to disturb some of the subplots, but at the end of the day, there will be a showdown. Same is the case for high school. There will be a challenge, there will be a sacrifice. Transformation, how your character transforms over the time, how it changes him or her as a person, and overall flow, how you combine it all together. This is your bare minimum for a story. Why? And again, there has to be a why. You can go deeper, like, and we will do a small exercise next. So, any questions? These two slides are really important. These are some of the examples of the kind of exercises, the kind of writing exercises, how we will try to connect the various plots and subplots of our story. Any questions on these two slides? I again take a pause. Excuse me. Just okay, no questions. So now going back to another simple example, I'll just explain it. I think I have a lot to cover today. So Dora the Explorer, now I need you guys to answer. What is the meaning of Dora's name? Can you guys take a shot at it? Can you please be in Hindi? Brahman, I would love to, but this particular course we are doing in English, so I will keep that as an action for me. I will do it at that. I hope that is acceptable. Okay, thank you. Remind me at 5:20. I'll give you a quick summary in 10 minutes. Huh? Okay, no other. So, okay, there's a question for you guys. You can watch this video. I took the screenshot from here. Nick's on your channel. How can we learn from these small kids series? So, anyone can tell me what's the meaning of Dora's name? Dora's stories typically follow a structure. We start, it's an adventure, it's a detective, it's the learning part. However, a lot of how to write a plot like Joker, negative role, audience loves it. Any tips? Oh, if I would know that, I'll be on Netflix. So I'll be, sitting with the Netflix producers. But yes, there are some aspects we will explore. Ankita. When we come to the character part, there's a reason there is a complete 2 days only for characters. That's what we'll discuss there. And that's the reason I need you guys to give me questions. I want you to tell me what kind of characters you love so that I can get you the material relevant to those characters. And thank you for that question. So, anyone who can tell me what's the reason Dora is called Dora? In the meantime, I'll cover the stories. So Dora's story, there is a friend or there is a person or an animal they will come across who's having a problem. He or she needs to get an object, or this friend with blue gloves, Viper the fox, has stolen or swiped something from them. Uh, and the next thing is they need to get to a place, they need to overcome some challenges, they need to defeat somebody in the battle of mind and intellect. Now, a lot of the animated stories, they are humanized. When I say humanized, you'll see the monkey or the fox, they are being bipedal, their gloves, they dress like humans, like boots. I don't know if you know boots, he wears red boots. But if you look from your audience is young kids who are still learning to speak, learning to recognize colors, learning animal names. So the animal names will always be relevant to something they are representing. They will have uh, a very basic level societal structure. So it will be like an animal is missing the mother, the animal goes to school, the animal is wearing glasses, animal has lost a bicycle or something similar. Okay, so they connect. I don't know why it's saying that. Okay. So the name, sorry, Kajal, Dora means Dora la Exploradora. It actually was started by Nick Jr. to teach Spanish kids or kids with Spanish or Mexican heritage English to make them comfortable. So Dora, the word, the explorer, the feminine word for the Spanish feminine word for the explorer is La Exploradora. So they made it rhyme Dora la Exploradora. That actually means Dora the Explorer. So like I just mentioned, objective of the story is the kid learns something. Loss of an important object, an unwanted event, you journey to an unknown destination, there are different phases, you get clues, people help you out, you have friends and foes, uh, you actually do very simple mathematics, language, landscape. But the most important part, what I love about Dora is it pauses to allow audience to solve. That is where it engages. So, as just take an example of detective fiction. I was reading or listening to some online lectures, and the person said the audience for detective fiction is already consuming so much detective fiction. So you know your audience is intelligent. So you have to write it in a way that you are giving them the clues so that they think they are doing better. Another lecturer, I think, had said that you are the bad guy and your audience is the good guy. You, as an author, are the criminal and your reader is the actual detective. So, throughout the book, the reader is trying to catch the author. That's how the book should be. It's about the story flow, how your pieces should connect together. So whenever you are giving out a clue, either you are trying as a criminal or as an author, you are trying to send the reader in a wrong direction. However, coming back to the Dora example, Mickey Mouse. If you see a lot of Mickey Mouse cartoons, they were very entertaining, but they were not learning, and they were not helping kids. Dora created a new market. Mickey Mouse came up with Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. And I'm sorry if these examples don't mean much to you. When my kids grew up with these things, so I was noticing these things. That's why I use it pretty common. A lot of I hope you guys are either young or old enough to connect with me. So now the next question is, what type of story are you planning to write? I would love you to give some answer. That are you writing a story fiction, mythology, uh, story of your own personal struggles? How do you connect these? So just 3 or 4 responses. At least I'll know whether the workshop. See, it's a workshop. It actually means you'll be getting assignments and you are supposed to submit it. But I haven't seen a single note or a single submission. So there will be, again, I'm repeating what I said earlier. Uh, there will be a WhatsApp group in which you will be given assignments and I'll be tracking what kind of work you are doing. And if you are fine with it based on your permission, some of your examples can be discussed in the class. Okay. So question here, what type of story are you planning to write? Sanjam says fiction. Okay, that's a very vast field, but I hope it helps because it will be lovely to connect a lot of different aspects to fiction. Anybody else? Ankita, I know, wants to write something similar to Joker, or maybe it was the example that prompted her to say that, Brahman, we will get your Kajal Singh non-fiction story. Okay. So non-fiction will have the disclaimer, the story is based on actual events, but the identities have been changed. So I hope you go through those kind of disclaimers also. Okay, that okay. I'll say just of time I continue. Okay, next we have, so give you a moment to read the story. It's a typical story, Bell the cat. What I want is, what is the problem? What is the solution? What is the moral? Can you tell me what do you get from this story? And then we will try to transform the story a bit. This is what I meant when we started this session. And I said that when I said that let's be pirates, let's study, borrow, and steal the ideas. Let's try to twist some of the existing story. So, can you tell me what is the danger? What is the problem that the mice are facing? So, on further, again, in interest of time and in due to lack of participation, I will call it out. Uh, Here is it. So the mice, it's the same story. They want to free themselves. The enemy is the cat. But the actual danger is, or the actual danger is the constant fear of her claws. But because of the fear, they don't want to be disturbed in their lifestyle, but the solution they need, the actual problem is that some way of knowing when she was coming. So the problem is not the cat attacks the mouse. Mouse, they know they have the ability, we can run away. But we want somebody to tell us, or some way of knowing that we are being attacked. Now, if you look at the historic fiction, let's say Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, when one state is supposed to send a message to the other state, they put up a fire on the top of the mountain, and then the other team sees the fire, and same way a series of fires are lit, and the other state knows we have to support or help the first state because they are in danger or they're being attacked. So now the challenge is signal. They need to create signal. Now they discuss the plan, and one chap says it's very simple and it's going to be successful. Let's hang a bell about the cat's name. Now there's a solution, again, simple and complex. Uh, uh, Simple must not be confused with easy. This is a simple situation. So this is a simple solution, but it's not easy. Okay. Complex is when it's difficult to understand, when it's difficult to create, like repairing something. Hitting something is simple, but the challenge is, do you have enough power? Do you have the right tools? Okay, so be very careful when you're writing. Don't simplify it, or do you want the overall interaction or the problem to be simple or complex? Okay. Now here, because you can say it's such a novel, but it's a damn stupid idea, right? I mean, okay, you'll hang the bell, but who will do it, right? So is it a heist? Is it an adventure? Is it a spy thriller? I don't know. And that's what we'll do in the next slide. So now I want you to give me at least 5 ideas. If this is your first plot, this is the first phase of your 3 plot structure. You have introduced the characters, that mice who are always scared of the danger, scared of cat, their constant fear. They want to hang a bell. This is one of the solutions, but they want a way of knowing when she was coming. That is your phase one. And somebody is ideating, somebody is giving ideas. It's not successful. It is a stupid idea, but it is something different from always hiding at the last moment because that puts the old mice at risk. So, from here, if this is an assignment given to you, this is your plot, sorry, the first part of three plot structure. In the second plot, you find a goal. What is it you feel is possible from this to phase onwards? Some solutions, some alternate endings. If you see, this story doesn't have an ending. It's just a guy who says something, the other guy shuts him down. That's it. And we learn, oh, it's not possible. That's not how creativity or innovation works. We'll actually, if this was followed, we will never have any stories. So, what can be done? Can you extend it and asleep one solution? Yes. We have one solution, really good solution. Now to extend that, so until I get other answers. See, you have heard about mouse rat poison, but we haven't heard about cat poison. So one thing is the rats can use that poison to ensure the cat can sleep for a longer time, right? And we are assuming, see, I have to ensure it is believable. But Sanjam said it's believable. Now I need to make sure that the cat is deep asleep, just extending a subplot. How do I pick up the medicine? How do I pick up the rat poison? How do I ensure the cat consumes it? Any other ideas? And what can be the challenges? I need to show a failure. I need to have a story. I need to have a personal commitment of a group of mice or rats that are willing to take that risk. And why are they taking the risk? Did that cat kill or injure some of their loved ones? Any other solution? Or maybe I think Sanjam is the only one who's looking at the screen. Okay, so we go from a goal uh, to one possible solution, plan A. If plan A fails, we go for plan B. Now, what kind of failure you want to do? The end goal is to ensure the cat is asleep. The other option can be tying something to the tail, to the paws, the ear. The neck is easy because we see our domesticated animals being controlled with ropes around their necks, be it horse, be it cattle, right? So, is it possible that we put something across the tail? Is it possible we put something across the ears? I think recently in India, a lot of farm animals they have some tags around their ears. I may be wrong here. So, why just around the neck, right? So there are so many possibilities. But at the end of the day, my solution is I need to find a way of knowing whenever the cat is coming. So it is a fake idea. It is about tall lies. So the model of actual story is you should not be telling such tall lies, right? Or impossible. You must look at the feasibility of a solution. But if that was the case, we will never have an adventure story. So to convert it to an adventure story, young minds decide to build something, use their resources. Why and who will do that? As I mentioned, make it personal. It can be a revenge moment. It can be somebody who lost a leg or an ear, who has been ridiculed, whose parents or loved ones or kins have been ridiculed due to that injury. Uh, you need to call it out, whether it's complete foolishness or bravery. Often it should be difficult to tell the difference because you want to give a message. Is it by choice or by accident? Why will somebody Ankita, I actually had that in next slide, so thank you for that. Introduce technology. So If I were to give chocolates for the right answer, you will get. So what kind of trap will you set? I'm sorry, this is very important, choice or accident, which we will cover tomorrow because journey of the hero I want to cover it today will not be able to do. So why will a specific team or set of mice pick up this mission? Is it by choice? Will they be asked to do this? Okay. Are the mice skilled to do that? How will they learn? What are the losses incurred during different phases? We cannot have a simple story where they don't uh, end up in a perilous situation. You might have a time when the cat wakes up suddenly and catches mice by the tail, but some other mouse will roll something over cat's head or something. The cat escapes and the mouse escapes. Or sorry, the cat dodges that and the mouse escapes. So you have to have some individual losses. There must be the objections must also be amplified. Who all will object to the idea? Like I mentioned, there will be people who will come back and say it is not possible. This is sheer stupidity. Or the cat is going to come back and be ferocious than ever. It instead of chasing us, it might start really hunting us. And can there be other plans with lesser risk? I think we have some ideas. So now what you guys can do is you can change some characters, you can introduce new ones. What is the raw material required to make or cat sleep for a longer duration? Key objects. What is the expertise? How do you get it? There is always a mentor, a person who guides you. It can be a mouse or a rat or some other animal having a similar situation who came back, or how do you learn? How so basically how you get that information. Uh, you can introduce technology. That was my suggestion. I was saying my idea was that the rats or the mice can actually order a small bell to that address. And once the bell comes, the owner will have only choice to bell the cat because it's a free gift. Why not? Right? Something simple. So now rats and mice, they have been portrayed in various movies, Mickey Mouse or Ratatouille as a chef, as a fighter sensei for Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles. I hope I got that right. So, and further, you want bloodshed, you want violence, you want samurais, you want complete gore, you want detective, you want thriller, you want detective to understand what the cat likes. How will I feed the cat so that it sleeps for a longer duration? Make it a thriller, make it a heist. All up to you. Simple story, learn from it. Ek Chidiya is an old video from 80s. I have this link with you. Oh, you'll get it. Just see if you can work on this. Similar stories or plot outlines. There is a movie, sorry, series. Originally, it was a book, Do Ghost and the Darkness. A new movie is coming. It's a horror comedy, Cocaine Bear. It's a silly movie with random thing, but it's based on a true story. So now, what happens in the zoo? Animals are getting smarter and ferocious. They are attacking humans. They're not just attacking as an individual, they are teaming up. Excuse me. Ghost in the Darkness, 90s movie with Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer. I think Om Puri played a very important role in the movie. Not important, but small role. Uh, where the lions are actually teaming up to attack the humans. And it's, I think, a British African production together where the British are there to set up the railway line. So the key here is I mean, there are different sets of animals, but they're certainly against. Coke and Bear, it's like I said, it's a horror comedy. But the true story is that some person, smuggler, dropped a lot of cocaine and the bear actually ate it and died of overdose. Uh, at least that's what they're saying. It's really based on. So this movie I think will be this week or next week or next month getting released. However, the part here is how will domesticated animals attack humans? dogs and cats, cattle farm animals, zoo animals, reptiles. So see, this is a bunch of ideas from a simple story. Wild animals, sanctuary, the animals they are living there. I think during COVID and the part of Bangalore I live in, which outskirts of the city, uh, there were some areas in which leopards came. So I think it used to be pretty common in villages across Himachal in the 80s and 90s in the newspapers and still in Himalayan villages. A lot of, yeah, I forgot the name of the person, writes a lot of short stories, lives in Dehradun. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. His child stories are a lot of like that. A combination, the animals join forces. You have uh, birds helping dogs, dogs helping cats. They are against humans are the common enemy. And extending the idea from Ankita here, can computers and artificial intelligence team up with animals against humans? I mean, they need living masters. Why it has to be humans? Why can't it be animals? Any questions here? I know I'm at 20. I need to revisit what uh, Brahman had asked me. I wanted to cover hero's journey from the next chapter. Anyway, it was scheduled for the next one. A lot of other things. I'll just come here. I'll keep this slide open for you guys. Which genres or subplots do you think are from this movie, and can you find some? I'll just pause my sharing on this one. Give me a moment. And in the meantime, I will revisit what Brahman asked me to do. Give me pause. Sure. Any questions? I suddenly there's no one. I hope team is still there. You guys are not hunting cats and mice right now. I hope you read some of these movie series or subplots, and you can relate to that. The situations and all these things we'll cover in the next one. Okay. तो भ्रमण तो भ्रमण इसमें थ्री प्लॉट स्ट्रक्चर क्या है कि आपकी कहानी तीन हिस्सों में अ, आप उसको विभाजित कर रहे हो. मेरी हिंदी अगर गलत है तो आप बता. पहले हिस्से में आप ये बता रहे हो कि उस वक्त कहानी में क्या हो रहा है. जो आपका हीरो है या मेन कैरेक्टर है, उसकी जिंदगी, उसकी रेगुलर जिंदगी, रोजाना जिंदगी कैसी है, उसको क्या तकलीफ है, उसमें उस तकलीफ की वजह क्या है. तो स्टेटस को मतलब इस वक्त या उस वक्त कहानी में उस समय पर क्या हो रहा है, और बहुत ही कोई छोटा चेंज होगा उसमें. क्या चीज बदलेगी छोटी सी, जिससे आपके कैरेक्टर को, आपके हीरो को ये लगेगा कि वो बदलाव ला सकता है. जो मिडल है आपकी कहानी का या मध्यम फेज है, जो उसमें आप ये डिसाइड करोगे कि हीरो को अंत में क्या चीज चाहिए जिससे हीरो वो बदलाव लेके आ सकता है. क्या उसको कोई हीरा या कोई कीमती चीज लेके आनी है, या उसको किसी चीज को तोड़ना है, नुकसान देना है, या उसको कोई चीज जीतनी है. और मध्यम में आप उस कहानी के ऊपर इसे मध्यम पार्ट का जो दूसरा भाग है आपकी कहानी का, तीन भागों में आपकी कहानी है, ये बहुत ही जरूरी है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे आप अपने पढ़ने वाले को खो दोगे अगर आप इसको बहुत ज्यादा धीमे से चलाओगे या आप बहुत सारे कैरेक्टर ले आओगे और आप उसको मैनेज नहीं कर पाओगे। जो आखिरी हिस्सा है इसका, एंड, एंड में आप फाइनल लड़ाई या जो कहानी का क्लाइमेक्स होता है उसके लिए पूरी तैयारी के साथ हीरो लड़ाई करेगा। और लड़ाई ये जरूरी नहीं है कि ये हाथ पैर मुक्के वाली लड़ाई हो, लड़ाई उसके अपने साथ के साथ हो सकती है। लड़ाई वो कोई नई चीज बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा है, उसमें वो कोई प्रॉब्लम है या जिसको वो सॉल्व नहीं कर पा रहा है। तो इसमें दो एग्जांपल थे, डिटेक्टिव और जो सुपर हीरो या स्पोर्ट्स के एग्जांपल थे। मैं स्पोर्ट्स का एग्जांपल देता हूँ कि अगर एक कोई बच्चा है या कोई अ, व्यक्ति है, वो कोई अ, नई चीज ट्राई कर रहा है, कोई नई स्पोर्ट्स या नया खेल खेलने जा रहा है, उसको खुद को नहीं पता है कि मैं बहुत अच्छा खेल रहा हूँ, उसको शौक है। अब उसमें भी आपके पास ऑप्शन है कि आपका जो मेन कैरेक्टर है वो कैसे खेलने गया, तो उसको कैसे पता चला कि मैं अच्छा हूँ। उसके बाद आपको दूसरी फेज में ये दिखाना है कि उस प्लेयर को ये पता नहीं है कि मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, बट रियल अब उसको पता चल गया कि मैं रणजी ट्रॉफी खेल सकता हूँ। जैसे इकबाल में है कि मुझे अपनी स्टेट या अपनी राज्य के लिए मैं खेल सकता हूँ, बट वहां जाने के लिए मेरे को एक कोच चाहिए। दंगल में अ, आमिर खान को जो पता चल रियलाइज होता है कि मैं अपने बच्चों के ऊपर ये काम करूंगा कि वो चैंपियन बन सकती हैं, अब नेक्स्ट स्टेप क्या है, मेरे को टाइम देना पड़ेगा, मेरे को अखाड़ा बनाना पड़ेगा। मेरे को बाकी अखाड़े वाले अलाउ नहीं करेंगे मेरे बच्चे को ट्रेन करने और उनके साथ लड़ने के लिए। तो वो सब सिस्टम तैयार होगा। तो आपको ऑब्जेक्शन आएंगी, आपको अ, दुविधा में आएगा आपका मेन कैरेक्टर कि अभी मैं क्या करूं। और वहां पे बहुत जरूरी है कि आप कहानी को इस तरह से लिखें कि आपका जो पढ़ने वाले लोग हैं उनको लगे कि कहानी आगे बढ़ रही है। ठीक है। और लास्ट तीसरा पार्ट है जो स्पोर्ट्स मूवीज में आपको ऐसा लगेगा कि जितनी भी मैंने तैयारी की थी, फिर भी कुछ ऐसा होगा जिसमें आपके मेन कैरेक्टर को कुछ ज्यादा करना पड़ेगा, कुछ सेक्रीफाइस करना पड़ेगा। हो सकता है कि उनकी बाजू या टांग पे चोट लगी हो, बट वो फिर भी खेले, जानते हुए कि अगर ये चोट ज्यादा हो गई तो मैं कभी दोबारा खेल नहीं पाऊंगा, या मैंने आज तक इतने तेज खिलाड़ी का सामना नहीं किया है, इतने स्ट्रांग खिलाड़ी के साथ नहीं लड़ा, बट आखिरी में आपको वो करना पड़ेगा और वो करने के लिए कुछ ना कुछ आपको गंवाना पड़ेगा। देयर हैज टू बी सम लॉस। जस्ट क्योंकि आपके खिलाड़ी ने, यहाँ पे कैरेक्टर ने 2 साल कुश्ती की प्रैक्टिस की है तो वो जीतेगा नहीं। आपको कोई ना कोई प्रॉब्लम, कोई ना कोई अड़चन आखिरी समय पर इंट्रोड्यूस या वहां पे लिखनी पड़ेगी, जिससे आपको पता चले कि आपका खिलाड़ी क्या क्या करने को तैयार है। ठीक है। मैं जानता हूँ मेरी हिंदी अच्छी नहीं है, बट आई होप कुछ समझा हुआ है आपको। कमिंग बैक, a hero's journey we'll cover in next chapter. Again, any ideas, anything. So I'll just pick up some of them. Spider-Verse, Doctor Strange. It's a science fiction. It is parallel universe. It is superhero genre. It is magic. It is fantasy. It is about sacrifice. It is about the chemistry of different kinds of Spider-Men or Spider-Girls working together to achieve a common goal. Dangal Iqbal. The reason I combine them in is in Dangal, you see the father being the promoter of the sport. The father actually trains the kid. In case of Iqbal, the father actually is the, single person who objects to, Iqbal playing cricket. So that's why I actually combined them together. So both the stories have a good timeline and they are relevant. But just single character, if you see, is portrayed differently in both these stories. Dhoom is a typical masala heist movie. Kabali, Kala, Asuran, uh, they have a different connotation. An outsider either living in a different city. I think in Kabali and Kala, you have so-called immigrants, Tamilian immigrants either living in Malaysia or Mumbai slums, how they are being uh, considered outcasts, but when the politicians or the local leaders they need them, how they are being used to have the pride in your own culture. Asuran is more about the social structure, the casteist part of the society. Bahubali or RRR. RRR, I haven't seen Bahubali, I have read about period drama. Kahani, one of the best detective movies I have ever watched. The characters are so well written. Uh, so I have written Bahubali twice. I'm sorry for that. Sarpata Parambai is actually a combination of a boxing movie. It's about the master and the disciple relationship. It's about a person who's being not allowed socially to compete, who's always being looked down upon, that you are not allowed, you cannot compete with us. And then the person actually loses the path during the storyline. So I personally like Sarpata Parambai really a lot because it actually pushes the hero off that edge that the hero has lost the way. He gains a lot of weight, he gives up, then comes back. Typically, there are other reasons for that. There will be an injury, there will be social pressure. So, you will anyway get this PPT. Will look into this in detail. His Dark Material, Man in the High Castle. This is again parallel universe, well before Spider Verse. I mean, these books are way old books. I mean, this is his Dark Material is similar timeline as Harry Potter, but Man in the High Castle is I think by Philip K. Dick, who's a really good sci-fi writer. Okay, so today we learned a little bit about story genres. We learned with Dora how can we rewrite an existing story in a new genre. We can pick up small parts. A little bit about three plot structure. We missed the conflict situation and Campbell's hero's journey framework. We start with those two on coming Saturday. However, I request you to please start working on your stories, ideas, making notes of whatever content you are consuming, whether text, whether series, whether audiobooks, whether videos, movies, or series. List the components of the stories, change some characters, plot, and ending. However, alternate ending should be justified. It should be believable. I mean, I cannot have Mouse bringing in AK-47 or a revolver and killing the cat. Okay. Uh, Play within the limits. Set up your limits. Always give the audience something that is believable. I already asked you if anybody is working on a book or a story or a play or something similar. My only reason to ask that is if you guys would like to combine forces, you would like to have uh, a reviewer, an editor, a person who can help each other, the other person, please use this platform. Mail whatever notes or stories or challenges you are facing to storiesanddoodles@gmail.com. If you want to, WhatsApp to this number. I will be making a WhatsApp group on which I'll be posting the worksheets and assignments. At least for this assignment, please give me three favorite stories. Please give me two or three of your favorite characters. I don't care. This was the question. I know I'm over the time. I want the character you liked. I want the character that inspired you. What kind of characters would you like to write? Would you like to rewrite? Maybe there's a character you feel like, okay, this could have been a really good character, but the movie downplayed it. It's typically a supporting character role. And which character do you absolutely despise or hate? What is the emotion that person or the character creates, and why do you hate or despise that character? experiment with an existing story or stories. Share your notes if you want to. If you have any questions, let me know. Whatever you have, any questions otherwise, please submit this at least three story analysis or two or three characters by Thursday, 23rd February, 10 p.m. Indian time. I'll review them on Saturday morning, and then I can include some of the good ideas for our presentation. If you want, if you feel that your ideas you don't want to share with the bigger audience, please mention that in the any questions on today's session? Anything that you'd like me to repeat? No, we are 5 minutes over the time. Still, I'm here. We will be going into the details of the plots first. Then we will have writing exercises where we will try to, we have to write engaging audience. And then characters, we have full 2 days lectures on characters. We will be discussing a lot of characters, but again, the request remains the same. I want you to be engaged. I want you to share some character which you would like me to discuss. So there's nothing else. I think we're done for today's session. As always, thank you, Nalanda team. Thank you, participants. If you would like to comment on YouTube or reach out for any questions, please feel free to do that. Have a good day, everyone.
थैंक यू सर। और सभी को मैं बताना चाहूंगी कि हमारे डिजिटल नालंदा के